He's an icon, often described as the Kaiser, the emperor in German, because when you're creative director to some of the most important haute couture houses in the world, Fendi, Chanel and your own label, you can really say that you rule the fashion world. Well, we're in Rome to celebrate 90 years of Fendi, and we're going to meet none other than Karl Lagerfeld. Karl Lagerfeld. Karl Lagerfeld, many thanks for being with us in the global conversation. We're here in Rome to celebrate 90 years of Fendi, a company we associate with luxury. But what does luxury mean to you?
Fendi is a good example of what luxury can and should be. But you know, there are many different types of luxury. Luxury also means having time for yourself without having to live under continual pressure. Today there are some poor people who have nothing to do, and others who are far too stressed. So that's a sort of luxury too. Luxury is also about quality and about a state of mind. You know, you could write an essay on luxury. It's not just about expensive things. They must be well made and their price must be justified. Their quality must be impeccable.
But luxury for you is perhaps also working. It seems like you never stop. What's your secret?
There's no secret, because let's not forget, for Fendi as well as Chanel, I work in exceptional conditions. I have the best people in the best conditions. I'm not being bothered by people in marketing. I can do what I want where I want. That in itself is the height of luxury, because in other fashion houses there are design and marketing departments. I don't have to deal with that. So if someone bothered me with all that, I'd be gone in a second.
This 90th birthday is going to be celebrated with a fashion show.
Not my birthday.
No, not your birthday, but rather Fendi's. And we're going to celebrate that at the Trevi Fountain with a fashion show inspired by Rome and fairy tales.
Not only by Rome, the theme of the collection is legends and fairy tales.
And how did you translate that into your clothes, into your creations?
Well, what we did, you'll see, it's very poetic. It's very much like a fairy tale. I took inspiration from someone who is now completely forgotten. At the turn of the last century, there was a Dane called K. Nielsen, who was a marvellous illustrator, very poetic, very strange, very Nordic, not at all like Art Nouveau and Art Deco. I rediscovered him totally by chance because he was completely forgotten. And I took inspiration from that for the colours, for certain graphics. We asked the foundation and the publisher, obviously, because there's barely a trace left of him, but it's very, very pretty, and that's an inspiration I transformed into an Italian style.
The Fendi house is known for its expertise working by hand.
Fortunately.
But how do you incorporate technological innovations to that?
Well, one doesn't prevent the other. Otherwise, we wouldn't do that sort of thing. If you stay with a formula, you're screwed in no time. You need to keep your eyes open. You can do the most inspired things, but at the same time, it's got to be at the cutting edge technically. Otherwise, there's no point.
And Rome is an important city to you?
It's the city that I know best after Paris. So I've been to Rome more than 800 times in my life. I've even had apartments in Rome. It's a place where I feel, I hate that expression, at home. I'm at home nowhere, yet I'm at home everywhere. It's not the same thing at all, but it's still an extremely familiar place to me.
And what was your first experience of this city?
That was when I was a child with my parents, prehistoric times.
Is there a particular memory that stayed with you?
Yes, the flu I had.
So you're not just linked to Fendi, you also work for Chanel and for your own label. Do you need a triple personality for that?
Not one, but three.
There are three?
Yes, that's it, I hope, because, you know, Fendi is my Italian version, Chanel is my French version, and the rest, well, it's me.
And I've seen you do your sketches with stunning speed and precision.
I wanted to become an illustrator in the beginning, and that's helped me a lot, because people who work with computers, artistic directors, look at stuff that others are doing. I do everything myself. I do extremely precise drawings almost in 3D. The people who work with me, the heads of workshop premiers, as we call them, barely need to ask questions. When I see the first fittings, it looks exactly like my design. If it isn't any good, it's my fault, not theirs.
It's interesting because I'd have thought that these people who translate your sketches would be rare gems.
No, I translate in advance with my annotations and 3D drawings. It takes up a lot of my time, but I love it. Initially, I wanted to be a cartoonist or a portrait artist.
Well, we've asked our online audience to send us some questions for this interview. You're an icon, but Christos Senekus turns the question around and asks, who's your icon?
My icons? They're icons that people don't know anymore, perhaps. Harry Kessler, who founded Bauhaus, and the Nietzsche Foundation in Weimar, or Walter Rathenau, the first victim of the Nazis in Germany. But in fact, I don't think of people in terms of icons. The general public don't know my icons.
And is having a muse important to you?
Yes, my muse is Choupette.
Choupette, your cat?
Yes.
How does she inspire you?
Fortunately, it's not something you can analyze. By her mere presence, she has a very calming effect. By the way, it is medically recognized. People who have a cat have far fewer health problems compared to all those who don't. Apparently, it's amazingly therapeutic. I read a detailed, serious scientific article about it.
It's true, animals calm us down, but
I need to be calmed down. I'm a little hysterical, but it's a relatively new thing. She's 5 years old. Never before in my life did I think I would fall in love with a cat. But she's exceptional and world famous.
What are the qualities that make her exceptional?
Her presence and her beauty, also because she's a joy to watch. She's hilarious, with her big eyes like star sapphires, and her coat is perfect because she has several maids. She's never alone. Even here at the hotel, she's up there with her maid.
Oh, she travels with you?
Some trips, not all. In some countries, travelling with animals is problematic, but these are countries that I avoid. For example, I don't go to England. But now with Brexit, we need not even ask the question.
Let me ask you a question about Brexit then, because we are worried about Europe. Some say Brexit could be the first step towards the disintegration of Europe. What do you think?
What shocked me is that the people who voted to leave disappeared once disaster struck. That horrible man, the mayor of London.
Boris Johnson.
And then the other pretentious one, very populist. For me, Cameron is the grave digger of Europe, in a sense. They had advantages that others do not have. And those who voted are not necessarily those who will make the future. They will empty the country of its elite. That's what happens when you do foolish things.
And what do you think about the situation in Europe? Because we are seeing a rise of nationalism. Does that worry you?
It worries me, but I do not think it can really happen. Austria and all that, it's not funny at all. Neither is Poland, for that matter, not to mention France with its own little movement.
And what are the implications for young people, for example, in fashion?
Fashion will always exist. There'll be more H&Ms than luxury stores, but fashion will always exist.
And is there an elegance that one could term European?
Yes, because you can find elegance in the Middle East. Some burqas are very elegant, but they're not for us.
So what is European elegance for you, as a European citizen?
It's hard to put into words. It's a cosmopolitan style, not regional. It's an attitude, a lightness. But we have to step carefully so that it doesn't disappear. Populism doesn't encourage these things.
Here's another question from one of our online viewers from Germany, who asks, what advice would you give to young designers looking to follow in your footsteps?
They had better run.
Do you think they've got the same opportunities that you had?
No, it was a different era.
In 1965, choose a young, emerging designer. His name is Karl Lagerfeld. From his hands, a new concept of fur is born. From status symbol to light, colourful, fun apparel for the emancipated, independent woman. Always on the lookout for a unique style.
I've gained knowledge that you cannot learn at school. The whole time I've been involved in this, I've never looked back. I've accumulated knowledge. To be honest, I don't want to discourage them, but I think it would be better if they picked a different example to follow.
What advice would you give to this young generation?
I don't give this kind of general advice. I can only offer individual guidance. It depends on the talent they have, their desire, and even the circumstances in which they live, how they express themselves, how they can find the right path. It's not that simple, otherwise everybody would succeed. There isn't a recipe for success.
You say that you always look ahead.
Yes, 6 months ahead, because this is what fashion is all about. Otherwise, we're talking avant-garde, and we'd wear it in 20 years. Remember the avant-garde of the 1960s? Nobody's dressed like that today. That was one big farce.
I wonder if you could answer the following question then from Nam King. What will the fashion industry look like in 50 years' time? Can you imagine what it will be like?
I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know.
Well, you seem to have your feet on the ground despite living in quite an eccentric world.
Size 42.
How do you do it?
I don't know. I'm pragmatic, lucid, and I'm under no illusions when it comes to myself.
Designers sometimes complain that the world of fashion goes too fast.
In that case, they shouldn't sign contracts with big companies who need a certain rhythm for their business needs. So they want the check, but the work, a bit more difficult, isn't it? They only realize that afterwards. There are some people who are angry with me, as I did initiate collections which didn't exist before. What's more, for Chanel, there's the métier d'art, the early collections. I know that I'm vaguely responsible for an infernal workload, but I have the teams to do it and the clients who need it. If you have developed thus far, and if you have so many people working for you, you have to go for it. I don't believe in getting inspiration sitting on a beach. In French, you say hunger grows while eating. Well, inspiration comes from working.
Inspiration comes in your sleep too, I've heard.
I have electronic flashes. I suddenly see something. Even when I'm awake, in the bath, for example, it's very odd. I don't know where it comes from. It shows that I'm completely imbued by my work. I'm delighted.
Have you always had those flashes?
No, it's got worse over time. That means I'm making progress.
So Urbano has sent us in this question. What is the most complicated thing you've had to face up to during your career?
There have been so many, I don't recall. But it mostly went well. I don't remember anything in particular. You know, my professional and private pasts are all compressed, so I don't remember.
And do you feel a need to pass on your knowledge?
No, I can't. I do have assistants, trainees, so in a certain way, yes. But people need to rely on themselves. I've always relied on myself. When I was young, it was tricky because if you were young and didn't have any experience, you were considered nothing. Now, if you are young, you're considered amazing. And if you are in between, no one cares. And then lots of people who pass for young designers are 45, so God help us.
So tell me, back to Fendi. What did you bring to Fendi?
Mostly in the beginning, how to work with fur differently. Before, everything was stiff, conservative, heavy. Back then, the Fendi sisters were concerned about working with fur, to not have respect for it, because it is expensive. No, you have to break down the barriers and build something new.
You've risen to so many challenges, but is there still one that is particularly dear to you?
I don't see things in terms of challenges. It's a logical progression that's part of my work. There are no challenges. I have no one to answer to except myself. And that I don't care about.
Is there something you've always refused to do? You've been involved in so many different ventures.
No, I wouldn't refuse anything if it's something I haven't done before and if it's an interesting challenge. Of course, if I were asked to do something ridiculous, I would refuse. But I don't. Given the people I work for, that risk doesn't exist. Not here, not in Paris.
You're not only a fashion designer, you're also a talented photographer.
Apparently so. That's just continuity, because if I were only doing fashion, I would lose contact with the outside world. By taking photos for newspapers and advertising, there's a continuity with the fashion world, the models of the moment. That's very important because isolation equals death. When people start to put themselves in an ivory tower, they're dead. We are no longer in the era of draping taffeta dresses listening to Verdi. That's over.
You're also known for your Karlisms. I'd like to quote you one. En anglais, et il faut que je le trouve. C'est I know how annoying, impossible, and hard to please I can be. I wouldn't recommend myself as a guest to anyone. But you seem quite charming.
Really?
What makes you impossible?
I don't know. I'm not even sure I said it. There are Karlisms that are invented by other Karls.
And finally, you create, but for yourself you seem to choose a more constant style. Why?
Constant and not so constant, because it suits me. It's immaculate, because I hate sloppiness. And it's also engraved in people's minds. You know, I never go out onto the streets now.
You never go out into the street?
No. From the door to my house, to the car, to the car, to the door, I don't go to public areas. I hate selfies and all that kind of stuff, though I love all the progress. I don't remember what life was like before iPhones, but personally, I don't want to be on a photo with 1,000 strangers.
Karl Lagerfeld, many thanks for having been with us on The Global Conversation.
Oh, I hope I didn't say anything silly.
Not at all.